My answer to every issue in the business was work harder, do more, work 7 days a week. Don't shut it off all the time. This guy has built a company that is literally multiples and multiples bigger than what I have. And he's less stressed. He's more laid back than I am. And I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Instead of you being the one that says, I just need to work harder. I just need to work harder. I'm going to go do all the things. You start to think like an architect. How do I design a system? Where are we missing an asset in the business? How can I go build this? I realized that for me to double this business, to go from 750 to 1.5 million, or from 1.5 to 3, I can't double my effort. So something has got to change. And I would like to know how to be able to install an operating system into my business so it's running on something outside of me. The freedom and flexibility I want is on the other side of structure, process, and routine.
Bradley Hamner, thank you for coming on our podcast. Could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity. So my journey as an entrepreneur and small business owner started really from my early upbringing with my dad. My dad's a small business owner. Specifically, he's a farmer. You and I were talking about me being from Alabama, and my dad's a farmer. They farm close to 10,000 acres. And the reason I share that is you really pick up the work ethic of a farmer. My dad, he worked his tail off. He still is one of the hardest working people that I know to this day. He runs circles around most people. And I'm so grateful for what I really caught from my father, not necessarily was taught, but it did come as a sacrifice. He missed a lot of my games, was not able to practice basketball or baseball with me when I was growing up, but he was always incredibly supportive, what he could do to be able to be there. And I took that along with when I got out of school, my first early jobs were in sales. And so when I started my business, I felt like I had some sales skills and I felt like I knew how to, what it meant to actually work my tail off. And that's exactly what it takes in the early days to get some lift into the business. And that worked for the first 5 years up until the point that it didn't work. I was able to get the business in 2015 to, around 500,000 to 600,000 of top line revenue simply off my back. And we refer to that as I was the rainmaker of my business. Everything was dependent upon me. But when the business started to really plateau from a revenue side, I pushed on the only thing that I knew, which was to continue to work harder and to work more. But it didn't work. And so then I started just working harder and harder until the point I burned out. I started experiencing panic attacks for the first time and really almost thought about leaving entrepreneurship. A few months later, I found myself in Toronto. I was actually at a strategic coach, as a matter of fact, great, incredible program. And I sat next to an entrepreneur. We were doing the 10X is easier than 2X exercise that is now portrayed in the book, but we were doing that in 2015. And that guy shared something that I'd heard for years, but had never done, let alone implemented. And he said, look, it's just systems and processes. And given where I was at that point in my career, I was at my wit's end. I was burned out and I needed to do something different. And given the success he had, something really changed within me. And on the way back, I started to become the architect of my business. And so since then, I was able to scale that company. I've been able to scale multiple other companies, but more importantly, I've been able to help other people to do the exact same thing. So that's a little bit about my story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And you also have a podcast coming up on 400 episodes. Could you talk about what was the impetus for starting that?
Well, I started the podcast on a whim. One of my business partners and I were talking, and we were in the process of launching an initiative, a coaching program in late 2019. And I had really gotten into podcasting or listening to podcasts a couple of years prior. And I said, I think we should start a podcast. He's like, cool. What do you want it to be about? I was like, I have no idea. I don't even know how to start a podcast. My first 2 episodes, which you can actually still listen to this day, were recorded on GarageBand on my Mac. Actually, don't go back and listen to those. Those were terrible in the early days. But I didn't know what I was doing. And I actually just started to record a podcast recently, kind of reflecting on 400 episodes. And it's crazy that it's been 5 years and that many episodes later, but I've gotten to meet some incredible people like you. And so we drop right now 2 episodes a week, on Monday, and solo episodes that I do on Friday. And the name of the podcast is called Above the Business. It really is a nod to Gerber's concept of working on it, not in it. I agree. I think there's just also a third dimension that we need as an entrepreneur, and that is to be able to work above the business. So we'll say you need to work on, in, and above the business. So people can check out the podcast if they'd like to.
Great. Going back to the topic or the concept of a rainmaker that you say, and your background in farming kind of instilling in you this grit that's necessary to push forward. And that grit can sometimes force you right into a wall if you're not able to adapt. And I think I can relate to that. I think many people can relate to the difficulty of being proactive with adaptation. Usually, adaptation is forced upon us. There's a lot of transferable skills coming from farming or any other background, I imagine, but it's difficult to be proactive about applying that. Like, oh, I learned this in farming. I could apply that in accounting or in engineering. Like, it doesn't quite come to mind until that's forced upon you. And you talk about going from rainmaker to architect, where you're starting to work on the business instead of in the business. Could you talk a little bit about the process, maybe some of the aspects of stepping back and designing systems that allow the business to run more independently?
Yeah, I think the most important thing you said there is designing systems as opposed to being the one that you do all the things. So a lot of times people ask, okay, I think that makes sense. That resonates. What's the first thing that I should do? I think the first thing you should do is the exact same thing, first thing that I did. And then I'll share with you the second thing. So I think that there's two journeys that are happening. There's the journey that you're on as the business owner. And then there's the journey that the business is on. There's the journey of the entrepreneur and the journey of the business. The first one is the journey that the entrepreneur's on, of going from being the rainmaker, where everything is dependent upon you, to becoming the architect. And that's an identity shift. That's a mindset shift. I got an email from somebody that listened to me on one of the podcasts, and they said, honestly, that's a mindset shift that I needed to adopt. And it really does. You start to see your role in the business differently. Instead of you being the one that says, I just need to work harder. I just need to work harder. I'm going to go do all the things. You start to think like an architect. How do I design a system? Where are we missing an asset in the business? How can I go build this? Our members will use language such as, how can I go architect this? And if there is an architect listening to this, we use that and we are very honoring to that profession. I've actually been on a podcast that just serves architects, as a matter of fact. And I said at the very beginning, listen, I have a great deal of respect for that profession. And so while we use it kind of as an analogy, so to speak, it really is powerful because of the quality that you get, the craftsmanship. I wanted my business to be designed not by default. My answer to every issue in the business was work harder, do more, work 6 days a week, work 7 days a week, don't shut it off all the time, work all the time. And here's the issue too. I love business. I love business. I would tell myself I love business. The thing about it is it wasn't that I wasn't working hard. Most entrepreneurs don't need that lesson. They don't need to be told that. It's really helpful if you're an employee and you're considering starting a business, to be told, hey, if you're going to step into entrepreneurship, this crap is really hard. You need to understand how difficult it's going to be. I think that's fine. But for most entrepreneurs and business owners, they don't need to be told that. They're already working hard enough. It's just the business that isn't growing because the things that they're doing day in and day out are not the right things that they should be doing, just as it was for me. The business had plateaued. I think you can get a business to certainly 300,000 in top line just off of your back. And if that's what your vision is, then just do that. Just go sell. Just go sell some stuff and you can get it there. There's a lot of people out there that tout how to make $10,000 a month. Well, if that's what your vision is for what you want to do, then you don't need an operating system. You don't even need to become the architect of your business. Just go do it. Okay. Go make it rain all day. But if you want to get a business to 1 million or get it to 3 million, let alone, then things have to start to change. And I've seen this time and time and time again. Is most of the people that come to us are doing at least 300,000, but typically in that $500,000 to $1 million range, and they're capped out at what they can do. And they say, I realize that for me to double this business, to go from 750 to 1.5 million, or from 1.5 to 3, I realize that I can't double my effort. Okay. So something has got to change. And I would like to know how to be able to install an operating system into my business so it's running on something outside of me. So that identity shift is incredibly important. You start to see yourself in your role differently. And then the second thing is really just what I said, which is the business has got to be running on something outside of you. See, right now, for me, my business years ago was running on an operating system. It was just called Bradley OS. And for somebody listening to this, their business may be running on their own operating system too. It's a UOS as opposed to a Blueprint OS. It's not a designed operating system, so it's existing outside of you.
Yeah, that's great. Could you talk a little bit more about what kind of like how do you instill this mindset shift? Is it by first going through the exercise of creating a blueprint operating system? You know, I can certainly relate to that, but I'm just wondering how do you get your clients and how did you get yourself into seeing things differently?
Yeah. So there really is two things. So there's like, all right, I start to see my role differently. Now, what do I actually do? Okay. So there's an identity and there's a mindset shift. Now, it took me, uh, it probably took me a good 2 years, I guess. I mean, I fumbled around trying to create my first systems. I would hire people and then I would make the same mistake of not documenting things. So it took me some time. So the very first thing is before you even learn how to start creating better documents into your into what you do, I would actually just invite people to consider that they have Rembrandts in the attic, that they've already created some things in their business that are really valuable. So let me give this analogy. If you are doing laundry and you do your clothes and everybody does it and you get the clothes out of the dryer, do you just take the clothes out of the dryer, David, and start randomly throwing the clothes in random places? Clearly not. You don't put your jeans under the kitchen sink. You don't put socks in the refrigerator. You don't put your golf shirts in the kids' room. You put things where they're supposed to go. Why? Why? Why do we do that? Like, clearly it's a subconscious thing and it's a lighthearted analogy. We do it because when it's time to go look for my socks, look for the jeans, and look for my golf shirt, I'm gonna go where the golf shirts are. I'm gonna go where the sock drawer to the sock drawer, etc. The same thing is true for the assets that we have. So there has to be an organizing function in the business of knowing where to look. Otherwise, we're sending ourselves and our team members on scavenger hunts all the time. As everybody's looking for where's that document David created? Where's that asset? Where is that? Where did you put that again? What folder is that in? And that is what I was trying to figure out for years. Is like, I don't know how to organize all the different documents that I have. My recruiting system, where do I put that? And so we're using the search function in Google Drive or Dropbox or your Microsoft SharePoint or whatever that heck you use to be able to search for all this stuff, or Notion. Oh, well, crap. David names it something, I name it something different. And then Sally on my team or Joe on my team, they create documents and they all look different. Sally likes to use pink and purple and red colors, and David likes to use navy blue color, and I use, the default font, and it ends up becoming a Frankenstein looking thing. You know what I'm saying? People listen to this and understand why, because it was never designed. It was just defaulted to just like, well, I don't know, we'll just make it up as we go. And I want to say again, if you want to just have a business doing 300,000 in top line, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters. But if your vision is to go from 300,000 to a million and then from a million to 3, things have to be designed a certain way. There has to be a way to make all of this stuff work. And that thing is called an operating system. So we actually teach people all the way down to the details of how to even put together well designed documents. Whether you use Word document or Google documents, irrelevant. How and then where do you put them? What playbooks do you put into the business? And so in our operating system, an OS runs on a certain number of playbooks that together form a comprehensive operating system. So when you start to get down to both the granular details, okay, like how do you actually structure your documents so that they're beautiful, well designed, easy to use, easy to navigate through, it starts to embed a mindset into the organization that things we do are not by default. They're not by random. They're actually done by design.
You mentioned documents there as a significant component for this blueprint operating system or this business operating system. Could you mention a few other key components and how entrepreneurs can implement these?
Yeah. So the OS is a thing, not a concept. It's a thing. It's a thing that you can point to and you can say, this is my OS. Like if I was on a call with you and I was sharing my screen, I would go to Notion and our OS lives in Notion. Somebody bought my company, I can tell you what they would want. Access to that Notion. Okay. Because everything you need to know about how to run this business is right there. Every document, every asset is there. Every Loom video I've created, 400 podcast episodes and all the assets that go with them, every sales collateral tool, everything is linked in that. You get access to that, you've got access to the entire operating system, you've got access to the entire business. You want to know the vision of where we're going, the strategy of what it is we're trying to do, what our core values is, et cetera. So my point is that you have to be able to tell people, where's the OS? This is where the OS is. So if you go looking for something, the first place you go is right here. Now, I'm very clear about this. It does not mean your OS has to live in Notion. Ours does. We link a lot of documents in there, from Loom videos to Google Docs to Excel spreadsheets, whatever, doesn't matter. We just happen to build ours in Notion. Whether you can even build it in Google Drive, but you have to have one place of where the OS lives. It cannot live in multiple different places. One thing that's helpful for people to kind of imagine is a lot of our members don't really, at least right now, have the goal of selling their company, but it is a really good mindset to think, if I was going to sell my business, where would the OS live? Because that's the same thing that makes a business valuable to a potential acquirer, also makes a really good business to run.
Makes a lot of sense. And I like Notion for the record. Talking about work life balance, you mentioned that you had a health scare at the ripe old age of 34. Um, could you unpack that a little bit for us?
So the specific story is it was August 2015. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'll go back 2 months. June of 2015, I've got a picture that I posted on Instagram a long time ago. And it's two computer screens. And it says, better never stops, even on vacation. We were at Disney, had young kids. I have young kids now, but I had really young kids at the time. And I guess it was a Monday. I haven't actually looked back on that date, actually. But, and it's two computer screens, and I'm running a weekly team meeting. I felt like I'm so preoccupied in the business that even when I'm at Disney, I have to be running a silly weekly team meeting. Don't think about that. That's stupid. I should be at Disney. I shouldn't be running a team meeting. The worst part about that, though, is the caption: better never stops, even on vacation. It really still makes me cringe to see that. 2 months later, I'm working out in the morning. I actually had remembered that week I was frustrated with the business. The business was not growing. The culture sucked. The more that I worked to try to fix it, the worse it seemingly got. I woke up that morning, went, got some coffee, went to the gym. We were running around the parking lot, and I really started to feel some pains in my chest, like some sharp electrical pains, and it freaked me out. So I left, called a physician friend of mine. He said, "Well, come over here and we'll put you on we'll do some tests." The internal medicine doc, he had an EKG machine in his office. I'm in a full panic mode at this point. And he says, "You know what, Bradley, I actually see some stuff on here I'm a little concerned about. We need to get you in to see a cardiologist. Let me call him right now." Well, now imagine how I feel. They get me in to see a cardiologist the next day. I don't even really remember that 24 hours, but I remember going to cardiologist. They hook me up. They do the whole stress test where I'm on the treadmill, you know, do that. And, he comes into the room, and he didn't have the best bedside manners, but he said, "Everything's fine with your heart. I don't know what you got going on in your life, but whatever it is, you need to change it." He walked out. That's it. And that's why I say it wasn't very obvious what I needed to change, David. I wasn't making a lot of money, given where I felt like I needed to be, given how hard I was working. So I considered leaving. I considered leaving entrepreneurship altogether. I'd previously been in pharmaceuticals. I knew I could go back and get a manager job, district manager job, make $200,000 base salary, 401k, company car, benefits, a whole 9 yards, and provide better for my family. And I almost did it. Almost did it. I was that just frustrated. But I was like, you know what? I think this will always be there for me. I think I can go back. I want to do something different. I just don't know what the different is. I don't know what the different is. And fortunately, I'd been in strategic coach up to that point. And when I say I went to Toronto later that year, a few months later, I mean, I tried to make some changes into the business, but like nothing was really working, honestly. Like, I mean, I didn't know what to change. And when I was actually in the wrong class, when I tell that story, I'm in the wrong class. That was actually, at the time anyway, that was the 10X program. They let me in that class because the other dates would not work with my normal group that I was in. Okay. And so when I went in that room, I'd not met any of those people before. And so the guy that I ended up meeting had played uh, Major League Baseball. And he was kind of dressed like I'm dressed today. He had a hoodie on, had his hat backwards. I was dressed in like a nice sport coat. I mean, I was all buttoned up, and he's like laid back, and he's in financial services, which was kind of an adjacent industry to what I was in. And so we had met. He said, "I'm a financial advisor." So when we do this exercise, David, and the reason it was so profound is we do it individually and then we do it together. And he said, "Well, last year I made 40 million top line, or we made 40 million top line. I made 5 million personally. So here's what 400 million and 50 look like." I was like, "Wait, how much did you make? How much? That's not what I expected you to say." So when I told that story at the beginning, I kind of glossed over some of those details, but that's why it was so profound, because I was like, I expected he made 500,000, 750. I mean, something reasonable. So when he said they did 40 million, I was like, "Wait, what? That's not what I expected you to say." And that's whenever he said, "Look, it's just systems and processes. I got the business out of my head." And then later he showed me what that actually looked like. Now, he didn't give me his framework. He didn't give me documents. I didn't need any of that. I just needed for him to change and raise the bar for me once and for all, for me to say, oh, that's what it actually looks like to do this. That's how you do it the right way. I played golf in college for 2 years at a D2 school, and then I went to Auburn. And one of the guys that I practiced and played with at Auburn was he was a two-time Walker Cup player. He was, an All-American. He was an incredible player. And I played with really good players at D2 at UNA when I played there. But Lee was people can look him up. His name's Lee Williams. He played on tour for a while. Well, Lee was head and shoulders above better than anyone else I'd ever played with. And he showed me at that point what it meant to practice at a level and prepare at a level. College football is big in the South. And so he would go and practice after football games. He would work out before football games. While everybody else was tailgating, partying, he was putting in the work. Like, it's no wonder he was the best, right? And so the analogy is kind of like what I experienced in Toronto of like, oh, that's what actual systems and processes actually look like to build a $40 million company. This guy has built a company that is literally multiples and multiples and multiples bigger than what I have. And he's less stressed. He's more laid back than I am. And I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Maybe I need to change something. Does this make sense? Like, that's why that story is still so powerful for me. And hopefully that other people listening to this can not have to get to the place that I did of being burnout, frustrated, ready to quit before they have to make a change.
Why do you think many entrepreneurs resist structure and routine? And could you share some of the specific frameworks or playbooks you've used to help clients and yourself overcome this resistance?
Because we got into business for freedom and flexibility. So anything that looks like structure, process, and routine, we resist. That's the simple answer. I got into it to not be told what to do. I don't want somebody to tell me what to do. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to create a system and process and pin myself in a corner. That's why. That's why. So you have to get to a place that I do is that everything I want is on the other side of freedom. Excuse me. Anything I want is on the other side of structure, process, and routine. The freedom and flexibility I want is on the other side of structure, process, and routine. That's the answer. That's why. That's why we struggle with it so much. It's a paradox. It's a dilemma, really, of sorts. Of like, I think I get it, but I don't really want to do all that because I'm the entrepreneur. And the other thing is, part of it too is they don't know what it looks like. That was the other thing for me is that people would talk about this stuff all the time. I'm not any different, really, than most of the other people that I used to hear, except we just actually now share with people what it actually looks like. See, I'd listen to podcasts. I don't know if I listened to podcasts very much in 2015 and before that, but I'd go to events and I'd hear people on stage, or maybe I'd even be in a small group, small room with 15 to 20 other business owners, and people would talk about, we just got a system. We got a system. We got a system. And I'd think to myself, I got to get my hands on this system. So I'd say, hey man, can I get that system? Can you send me that? They'd like, yeah. Most of them wouldn't ever send it. I think what really is, they didn't have it. They had it in their head. They'd tout their system, but they didn't actually have one. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's actually why now one of our maxims is show me, don't tell me.
Good
Show
one.
me, don't tell me. You got a recruiting system? You got a recruiting system. Let me see it. How do you produce 400 episodes, Bradley? Well, we do this, we do this, we do this. Show me, don't tell me. Show me. What's your system? What do you do? You got it documented, or are you just making it up? You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. And so now, as much as we can, we should show people. We just say like, hey, here it is. Here it is. You want this document? This is how we do it. And I'll give people, listeners, some of those assets if they want to, like actually like how to organize all this stuff. Because I said earlier that the business runs on a certain number of playbooks, 15 of them to be specific, by the way. Okay. And I'll just give people exactly how to organize that. We'll share with them how they can do that in just a little bit. So there's just a handful of playbooks that the business needs to be run on, but ultimately that's why I think entrepreneurs struggle with this stuff so much.
What are some of the most common challenges you've seen business owners face when they try to grow and scale?
Hmm. Well, there's a lot of common ones. The first one is they don't actually have a vision of really where they want to go. So I'll tell people when we jump on a call with somebody on my team, the most important question that we're going to ask you is we're going to ask you questions around what we call point A. Where are you today, David? How many team members you got? What's revenue? How many customers do you have? What's your profit margins? What was it last year? What's your growth rate look like? That's all point A stuff. Now you'll be surprised. A lot of business owners can't tell us that. Okay. They're like, what kind of about this, you know? The second part is point B. Where do you want to go? Where are you trying to go? So, David, if I fly up to Vancouver, it's October 2027. I don't know if it's humpback whale season in Vancouver, but let's just say that it is. And you and I get on a boat and we take a journey out there and we're looking at the whales. We're having a nice glass of cab sitting there on the top of the boat. It's a beautiful fall day. Trees are starting to turn, colors are starting to turn over. There's a crispness in the air. We're about to go to a nice dinner. And you and I are reflecting on the last 3 years. And you could not be more happy with where things are in the business and where things are personally in your life. What do you see? Tell me what you see. And that's what we ask people. We ask people that question. Where's this thing going? And for the most part, most of the time we don't get very detailed answers. It is, I want to grow. I want to do more. I want to serve more. I want to have a bigger team. I want to make more money personally. I want the revenue to be more. I want the profit to be more. I want my culture to be better. It's all that, but generalizations kill clarity. And so that is the first biggest mistake that we see, is that we don't actually have a crystal clear vision of where the heck this thing is trying to go. That's it. Because really every other challenge really goes down from that one. Goes down from that. We got an issue with a team member. We got sure, there are things that happen. The funnel's not working the way we want it to. Our conversion rate's down, prices are up. I mean, economic challenges and all that kind of stuff. But at least we still have that North Star of where we're trying to go to. To me, that's the biggest one I see, is a lack of a crystal clear vision, or maybe as Cameron Harold calls it, a vivid vision.
That's great. Generalizations kill clarity. So true. I hadn't thought of it that succinctly before. You might have seen articles or heard about generalists now being more in demand. Obviously we need specialists, but we need a healthy balance of generalists and specialists. But I think the key word there is balance. And I think if you're a generalist, you still need that clarity. You still need that target. And it's not just thinking generally. And I can relate to that when you're mentioning, like, what do you see? And I am thinking in generalities, and I could see that there's work to be done with getting specific. And I've also talked to a lot of specialists, and I think there's work to do with zooming out a bit and maybe looking at the terrain around you. So I think it's just good to keep that in mind. The balance between like being a general thinker and a specific thinker. But I like the way you put that.
We call it that your business needs to have a blueprint. What's your business blueprint? Again, you know, it's all in play on becoming the architect of your business. What architects use as blueprints? Well, you need a blueprint for the business, and the business needs to run on a blueprint operating system. But specifically, to kind of finish out that thought, is it's 3 year, 1 year, 90, 3 year, 1 year, 90, 3 year vision, when your OKRs, quarterly targets. That's it. Show me, don't tell me. Literally, I this morning got off with one of my clients. We were doing his quarterly planning. He's been with me a long time, successful entrepreneur, has two businesses, collectively do probably 3 million in top line revenue. And we were looking at Q4. What do you want to get done? We also looked at what did we say we wanted to get done this year? I reminded him of that. Where are we trying to go in 3 years? Where are we trying to go in 3 years, Mark? Let's go back to that. So the next quarter has to be contextualized to what we said we were going to try to get done this year and how that helps us to get closer to where we're trying to go, closer to our 3-year vision. Like we actually have a 3-year vision that ends 2024. Like my current 3-year vision that I laid out 3 years ago ends this year. I have a document that started that's called BlueprintOS 2027. It is awesome to see the level of thinking I had when I created that vision 3 years ago and where it is today, because I haven't moved the goalpost. I said, this is what it is. And then some of those, David, we completely have missed the mark. Some of them we've crushed. And along the way, a lot of stuff has happened that I never would have thought would have happened. But it's still awesome to look back on those thoughts because I can remember where I was when I thought that. And what's cool about it is that when I get to 2027 or late 2026, and I'm looking back on what my thoughts are today, I'm going to be able to be teleported back and go, man, I remember that. I remember that. I'm a person of faith. I was looking through this the other day. I was looking in my Bible and I was looking up something and I saw a note that I wrote in the Bible in 2013. I wrote a note and just in that short note, it was like a sentence. It actually teleported me back like 10 years or whatever, 12 years to that moment. I was like, I actually remember where I was when I wrote that. Imagine doing that for your business. Imagine doing that for your business. But most of the time it's not written down. It's just bouncing around up in here. And sometimes we forget those kind of things. So that's the value of being able to put that down and actually be able to reference it.
Can you share any success stories from your clients who have used your Blueprint operating system to transform their businesses or mindset?
No, nobody's been ever be successful. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I'll give you two. I'll give you two. Okay, so I'll give you one. Serial entrepreneur, started working with him in 2014. They were doing a digital marketing agency, as a matter of fact, doing about 400,000 top line. They are now at a $3.5 million run rate and looking for potentially going to have an exit in the next 12 to 24 months. And it will be a really nice payday for them. He started that business off of solving a problem he had for himself in his other business. And now he's been able to document and build an incredible team, serve hundreds, maybe even 1,000 now, clients in that business. And he is not involved in the day-to-day because the business is running on something outside of him. He has a leadership and management team in place. And it is absolutely doing incredible. And he's going to have a really nice exit. And guess what he'll do? He'll just go do it again, right? Because and continues. Second one I love is similarly 2019 as well. I started working with 3 female founders. It was actually 4 at the time, but one of the founders left. So it's actually 3 female founders. They're in a behavioral therapy space. They work with children and parents with autism, and they go into the schools, and they also do private counseling or private therapy as well. And collectively, 2019, they did $90,000 in total revenue. I meet with them every month. They do now about, over 100,000 a month in revenue. They do more in a month than they did all in 2019. And that's three female founders that had no idea about business. No idea about business. They were really good at what they did. They really wanted to leave who they were working for. They came together with a vision and they said, we think we can do it a different way. But they did not really know how to run the business. And through working with them, and I do not want to take credit for that, but I just want to say that they've been able to do it and build something that exists outside of them, and to see the impact on the families and on the kids that they've been able to make, because they realize that they can't be the ones doing all the therapy all the time, but yet they've hired incredible people, and the ripple effect and the lives changed because they now became the architects of their business. And where they'll go the next couple of years themselves is going to be awesome. Like they've gotten the business now to the next theory of constraint. We actually had a vision offsite at my lake house, and we were looking at, okay, what's this business look like to get to 3 million, and we're now going to have to make some changes to the business to go to the next level. And it's not about the money, but it is about the impact for them. And so it's been really cool to get to work with them and see the impact that they've been able to make. But we have so many other case studies of people that, you know, it's not just about revenue growth. They've taken more time off. They feel more confident about the business. They've got things documented. I mean, the pictures we get from people who have printed their OSs out, put them in 3-ring binders, the screenshots they send to us from their teams that are so much happier because they're running, they've got structure into the business. The team knows where they're going. They run one-to-ones. They've got core values in place. Like, it's just, even so many cases, it's a better business to run. It's a better business for them to own, because it's not just dependent upon their emotional ups and downs all the time.
Awesome stories. Thanks for sharing that. Talking about your podcast, Above the Business podcast, what trends or themes are you seeing emerge in entrepreneurship or business growth that are worth paying attention to?
Well, the obvious answer, the obvious answer, which I will say it is, there's a lot of AI talk, of course. That's the easy one. That's the layup for me to give you, for sure. I think what you actually see more of, though, because of AI, sure, use AI. I just actually started using a new AI tool yesterday that I love. Absolutely love it. It's great. I'm going to play with it again later in today. I can share with you about that. I use it for several different things. I mean, you do get in the habit of pulling Chat GPT into your day to day, but honestly, that's easy for me to tell your listeners. I'm not an AI expert. I felt like about 3 months ago, I really hit kind of a crescendo to where I started to pull AI into my daily activities, to help me to do things and spin things up faster. That's been incredibly helpful. But I think because of that, actually, is human to human interaction has actually become more prevalent. I think people want more connection with people that hold their same values, have done the things that they want to do, and they want to be connected with more people. So, like, as an example, YouTube. YouTube is just absolutely blown up because it's not just the kids anymore. It's not my 14-year-old son who just watches YouTube. There's people that I would rather watch their content than watch, YouTube TV, as an example. Now, I'll watch YouTube TV for live sports, but outside of that, I never turn on YouTube TV. I don't even watch Netflix anymore, as a matter of fact. I would rather go and watch creators on YouTube that I really like. I love watching Marquez Brownlee, break down the iPhone 16, or 16 Pro. I love him. I love his videos more. I love some travel people. I love people like Kara and Nate. So I'm trying to get outside of just business stuff, here with some of this stuff. But like, people who do travel, like, those are incredible creators. I love seeing the things that they do. I'd rather watch those shows. And so what I think is is that use AI to help accelerate some things forward, but at the same time, you can pull people into your world, and you feel like you're actually doing it in community with one another. That's what I see a lot more of.
Yeah, I think that that definitely tracks. It's ironic because a lot of our learning in school and stuff is memorization and having this kind of methodical way of performing things like a machine almost. And now we've created a machine that can do it 100,000 times faster than us. And so it frees us up to be more human. Going back to what you mentioned about having a system that allows you to work on the company instead of in it, it seems like as a species, we might be at that threshold as well.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll just give a shout out to this AI tool that I started using yesterday. I actually picked it up from Ali Abdal. So one
Productivity
of my
guy.
coaches, huh?
He's a big productivity guy.
Big productivity guy. I actually don't listen to very much of his productivity stuff. It doesn't. It's actually I like whenever he talks about much more around his businessy stuff.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I think his productivity stuff is really good for a broader audience. But for entrepreneurs, I'd rather him talk about like the things that they do and his strategies for growing his actual business is a lot more interesting to me. But his one of his coaches is Daniel Priestley, who's also my coach. And anyway, the app that he launched with some other people is called VoicePal, and it's I'm sure it's got an API with ChatGPT on the backside, but whenever I'm trying to flush out, like on my Friday solo podcast, as an example, well, as much as I value human connection, my team is busy. So if I call Courtney on my team, my EA, or I call Ellie on my team, or I call Chase or whatever, and I say, hey, can you just listen to me talk for the next 30 minutes? They're going to be like, I mean, I can, sure. Like, is that really what you want me to be doing? I mean, clearly that's a joke, right? I'm not going to do that. Well, this voice pal has been a great AI tool for me to kind of flush out some content ideas. And what I love about it is it's basically puts it still inside of my voice. Okay. So one of the things I don't love about just standard chat GPT is that if I do that, it'll spit something back out where I'm like, directionally correct, not Bradley's voice. Does that make sense? Not
Yeah.
Bradley's voice. And so I recently, as a matter of fact, started writing the weekly emails that go out to our email list. And that actually has been one of the best things we've done because the emails are better because they're written in my voice. Whereas we had a system in place, and this is kind of back to that point of like human connection versus AI a little bit. So I'm using AI to help me kind of like clarify my thoughts, and that's what VoicePal helps me to do. But then at the end of the day, I'm still the one writing and making sure it's how I would say things. And previously, my team was taking my podcast and summarizing it with AI, but the emails were not great. It's not their fault. It's just, it wasn't Bradley's voice. And so I said, forget it. We're not doing that. I'm actually going to write the emails, and using a voice pal as an example has been really helpful to that. So that's a cool tool. So big shout out to Ali Abdal for creating that AI tool. But I think that's an example of using AI to have more connection with people in your community.
Great example. I'll check that out. You mentioned BlueprintOS 2027 and your next 3 year, your target for your next 3 years. Could you talk a little bit about the vision for the future of your business growth and how you think technology, automation, and systematized processes will shape the way that you and other companies might scale the rest of this decade?
Two elements to that vision. We'll hit 3 million certainly by 2027. We've got a target to hit the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list. That's a big vision that I have for us to be able to hit that. Uh, I've come really close to doing that, but I haven't been able to get the ball over the goal line doing that yet. So we're definitely, that's going to be part of our journey over the next almost 3 years or so. So that'll be a part of my 3 year vision for sure. We'll probably serve at least 300 to 400 small business owners by 2030. I want us to be able to impact 1,000 business owners to become the architects of their business by running their business on the Blueprint operating system. That's a big vision for us to be able to impact, because the ripple effect of the teams and the customers that they will go on and have an impact on is really tremendous. And so those are a couple of the highlight bullet points for what we'll do. How we'll use other different tools and automation to do that, I don't know. I don't know. Um, certainly we're going to continue to lean into tools like I just mentioned a little bit ago. One of the biggest things that we're probably looking to do right now is bring in a community. So we have a community with our members, but at the same time, we recognize that some people are not ready to make the jump yet, or maybe they're not large enough to work with us yet. They're just kind of getting started with their business, and so we want to be able to find ways to continue to serve people. So that's one of the things that we don't have right now specifically, is a community of people who aren't members yet. So we'll be pulling together that over the next year or so. That's going to be a big part of kind of what we're doing. We'll continue to do the Above the Business podcast. There's a lot of different strategies that will change. The podcast is definitely not one of them. So I don't know how many episodes I'll be at by 2030. So probably at least, I don't know, 700, 800 episodes by then, at least, something like that, which is crazy to even say that. So those are some things that, at the end of the day, we got big vision to impact a lot more people. The path and how we get there, I don't exactly know. And that's what makes it fun. I'll figure it out along the way. We'll make changes to our program. We'll make changes to continue to serve people. We'll help people to scale faster. We'll help people to become the architect of their business faster. And if we can integrate AI to be able to help our clients to be able to do it, let alone help us, then at the end of the day, our business is just a reflection of the results we've been able to get for clients.
Well, congratulations on all the milestones you've crossed so far, and best of luck with the 2027 targets and 2030 targets. And thank you for talking with us today. It was a real pleasure. Is there anywhere you'd like to point our audience to check out you and what you do?
Yeah, well, obviously, check out our podcast, Above the Business, so they can pick that up on all the platforms, of course, Spotify, Apple, the two biggest ones that most people find us on. We are going to have a bigger focus on YouTube going into 2025. We've been posting some stuff there, but we haven't really made a big push for that yet. But starting in 2025, that's going to be part of our strategy to do that. They can connect with me personally on LinkedIn is the best place to be able to connect with me, and let them know that they heard about me on your podcast would be great. And then we've got a starter kit. I mentioned some assets earlier for people to be able to get a training, like a video training from me, 10 to 15 minutes on how to use some of the assets in the business. So we give you the PDF, we give you the sheet to use, plus we got a video training. So they can go to blueprintos.com/assets, blueprintos.com/assets to get access to the Rainmaker Architect Starter Kit.
Great. Well, thanks again, Bradley. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.